He may look like a spider that you may know and love, or hate, but he's not quite the same spider and focuses instead on other masteries. It is SPI-01 Variant 2, Booby Spider, with the kit of triple melee trap, multi-legs, and the leg ability of Nest, which grants one additional charge to a placed plant or trap when charging Metaforce. Now, as a model that's been available in the permanent banner and pretty much since game launch, Booby Spider is someone you've probably collected at least once or twice already if you've been playing for longer than a week up to a month at this point. And while at first glance he may not seem like much, or even compared to his counterpart Trap Spider who does, that they do have the same mastery of specializing in passive aggression, but Booby Spider instead does it in a different way. Melee Trap is a setup-based skill that, once the plant is active on the field, will negatively and passively damage any enemies that choose to use melee parts. So that includes sword, beam sword, hammer, break hammer. Anything marked as a melee skill will trigger this trap and negatively damage them for passive aggression. Now, normally, setup skills you tend not to use super often for a lot of varying reasons, one of which is the fixed damage it deals just isn't consistent or something you can really keep up with or rely on, unless for some strange reason a battle modifier requires you to use one. But in the right hands and with a good strategy, any kind of trap can be absolutely devastating and a very, very big deterrent, not just to enemy AI, which tends to focus on these heavily, but even players to a point may avoid using certain skills if a trap is on the field. Multi-legs means that, of course, kind of par for the course for a spider, means that he will have moderately good coverage across most terrains, arguably the next best under biped, and his stats are actually not bad either as a permanent pool model. With a head HP at about 3200, arms just barely 3350 there, and his legs at 3650 means he's actually a lot tankier than you give him credit for. So he's definitely going to be sticking around longer than you really would want him to, whether he is on your side of the field or he is an enemy. His leg stats are actually not too shabby either compared to most others you'd expect as a permanent banner model. With a mobility of 568, he's not going to be the fastest on the field, but he does make up for it with a higher tier armor pool. And his resist stats, a melee resist of 1031 and a shoot resist of 1050, kind of a middle of the road there when it comes to his damage reduction, so he's not going to be seeing anything noticeable in terms of reducing damage, but he at the same time will not be seeing any noticeable increase in punish damage taken for having lesser defenses. An evade of just barely 700 isn't too bad either, but when it comes to laying traps, evading is definitely something he's not going to be focusing too heavily on. That all being said, as a pure set score, I do sadly though have to rate him at a 3.5 out of 10, but an argument could be made for 4 depending on how you use him. One of the biggest reasons I did rate him so low though, compared to even another trapper much like him, is the fact that all 3 of his parts are the exact same thing, which means there is no variance, there is no extra thing that he can add to the field. Melee trap is what he adds, it's the one thing he's good at, and he's not changing for anything. So while melee trap can be made useful, the redundancy very massively hurts him in this sense. Even if the leg ability of Nest does make these traps more potent and dangerous and longer lasting than one would expect a trap would be, melee trap again is kind of all he offers and that's it, which doesn't make him very conducive or viable as a model to use as a pure set. As mixed parts, however, I do have to rate him notably higher at a 5.5 out of 10. Even if you choose just to use his head or an arm, they pair very nicely with his legs or pretty much any leg ability that legs that have the Nest ability. And even if Booby Spider's all you got, can't really complain. Beggars can't be choosers, but he can still make do with it particularly well. So you can say pair it off with melee trap, and then maybe change it up with, say, using a setup plant-based skill instead of a trap to kind of add some variance in there for something more Booby Spider can make use of if he's going to focus solely on passive aggression.